to Horror Movies and Beyond. I'm your host, Ivotres Littles. Today, I'm joined by the director of My Best Friend's Exorcism, Damon Thomas. How are you doing today?
Very good, thank you. I'm a bit tired because we had a premiere film last night, so I was in a cinema with 250, 300 people, which was amazing to be there and to sort of. I was quite jet lagged because I got in like the day before. But yeah, it was great to see the film on a big screen and just see everyone reacting and people laughing at things you didn't expect and, you know, cheering. Yeah, it was a really good night. So I'm doing well, thank you.
That sounded like an excellent night.
Yeah, it was. It was great.
So My Best Friend's Exorcism was a book.
Yeah.
And how did it land in your lap? And how did you okay, I want to make this into a film?
Well, I suppose I did a few I've done ghost stories with Mark Gatiss, who wrote Sherlock with Stephen Moffat. And I did a thing called Cricket House with him. And I did another sort of sci-fi thing called First Men in the Moon, which is an H.G. Wells. And then I did Penny Dreadful. And I did another set of ghost stories, which is like a 5-parter. So it was like in my wheelhouse, and then with Penny Dreadful. So I got approached that this might be something for me. So I got sent the script first. So I sort of, that was the thing that my sort of launch off points for sort of Grady Hendrix. And so I read the book subsequent to that. I mean, it's got the best title. I mean, you know what you're getting, don't you? It's just,
yeah.
You know it's going to be a devilish.
Yeah.
And it's going to involve best friends. And I really like the friendship story at the heart of it. And of course, the 80s. You know, I've loved Stranger Things. I think Stranger Things has been brilliant. I loved films like Heathers back in the day. Shining, obviously.
Yeah. I grew up with all that too.
Yeah, but you know, we're in the same zone. So having those elements, it was like in my wheelhouse, and you know, doing Dracula and Killing Eve. I like having that juxtaposition of sort of horror and comedy, and or sort of violence and comedy. Those kind of putting those two things next to each other. So it was sort of like up my alley, as we say.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It brought back a lot of nostalgia. Some of the posters and the clothes, and it was like, I remember stuff like that. Well, at least my sisters, I remember that. I'm more of a 90s baby, but
okay.
Yeah, but I do remember my sisters dressing like that. I remember the hairspray and everything. It was a lot of fun. I really did love the main premise of the friendship. It was like the friendship was just challenged throughout, and to the point I was like, oh man. But each character, it's like it builds up into one. Like I've met people like that. Even myself grew up with those kind of like stages of life. It was like a teenager was exploded and each one is their own character. Gretchen, Glee, and you know how that's so cool. That was a lot of fun.
Great. Yeah, I mean, it's because we all know people who are sort of alphas, don't we? That you know, you have the alpha sports captain, then you have the alpha sort of you know, natural leader, and then they always have people that follow them. You know, that are the sort of wing people, and and so you get these kind of dynamics with groups, don't you? Where the two alphas are slightly vying for the top spot, and so that's what I tried to create with the 4 friends, and it was I thought Elsie was very brilliant in 8th grade, and I thought then who would work with her, and then we did some chemistry reads after we found an exhaustive sort of like look, and I thought Rachel would be great because just I said to her, you know, you need to just be a bit more bullish, you know, a bit more, you know, access that, you know, like sports captain-y type thing, because we all know those types. They are types. And did that really well, and it was really interesting getting them all together because they actually did all get on and become friends.
Yeah.
So, and I think that kind of shows, which is great, you know.
Hmm. Not only did it just touch on friendships, it did touch on many things that each one of them experienced. Not just their personality, just you had Glee about her sexuality and her confusion on that. And you also had Abby, who was just like, the acne and does she look beautiful? Also, you had Gretchen, who was like the very pretty one, very straightforward, but also had a very religious background. I mean,
Yeah.
those are elements that kids face, often. And I like how it was subtle, how it was exposed to us, and you get how each one was trying to deal with that, but still they needed each other to.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really glad that you sort of connected with that. I think the great thing about doing a period piece and doing a sort of horror piece is that against that kind of quite high concept setting, elevated setting of a devil possession. Mm-hmm. Also back in the 80s, we just had the conversation wasn't happening about any of those things, really. We had James Bond workout videos. That's what we had, Didn't we? That was like, and you people, there was no online, there was no internet, there was no mobile phones. So all your information came from like newspapers or your parents, really. Your parents was the only source of like information and sort of cynicism. And there wasn't an open discussion about all these things that have very much now come to the fore that still got a long way to go. And so you can sort of look at those things in a quite sort of austere way because people were just blunt. People didn't discuss things like we do now. And I think that's the nature of friendship. I think probably friendship has people are more willing to talk about emotions and put things out there. And, and their whole sexuality thing is complex, vast, and is now just beginning to be discussed and, be a sort of thing that people are comfortable talking about. I mean, it was a terrible thing back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? I mean, we just couldn't talk about those things.
No. But lastly, I wanted to ask, what do you want the audience to take away from this film?
Oh. Well, I think that for me, that the friendship story is the most important story. And I think that if you can come away by thinking, my friends are important to me. Do I do enough to keep those friends? Because I think that, that's, you're always trying to, as a filmmaker, try to shine a light on the human condition. And I think that to me is, I read a study that was saying, in one of the newspapers a couple of years ago, and it said, what makes you happy? And the things that make you happy are being with friends and being outdoors, being a bit closer to nature. So if you can be outdoors with friends, it's obviously the best. And I think that that's the thing that we sort of sometimes take for granted, especially after the pandemic, that we've all got a bit more antisocial. And I think that, when you reach out to friends and form connections, it's probably the best thing for you and for them.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say thank you. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. And thank you for doing this film because like I said, it brought back a lot of nostalgia feeling. When I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, the music, the posters. I almost cried. I was like, oh my God, the time flies.
Oh my God.
It was a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really kind. I really appreciate it.
And I think the audience will enjoy this film.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Damon.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too.